What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 64 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I'm excited, as always, to be discussing these episodes with you guys, so, without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's jump right into it. So, generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 64 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? Well, I thought the episode was fine. I mean, definitely the weakest episode, not only from the last couple of episodes that we've gotten ever since the recap episode that we gotten, but honestly, it's probably one of the weaker episodes of this arc in general. Don't get me wrong, there were some pretty interesting aspects from this episode. Obviously, the duel that we got in this episode, to some dialogue that we got with Yugioh and Doll, but other than that, and also learning about Luke's family, but other than that, this episode was just fine, and even some of those aspects, there was just some things that I did like about it, and there were some things that I really was not happy that they did during this episode, but we're going to be getting into that in this review, so let's jump right into it. So the episode starts off with Luke and Yugioh back at the Six Cross airship, and I'm going to assume that Yugioh was giving a tour of the Six Cross ship for Luke. That's the only thing I could really think about, because at the beginning of the episode we see Yugioh actually showing Luke his room, and I'm gonna just by that logic assume that he was giving a tour of the place, which makes sense, especially since we know now that Luke is going to be one of the presidents for the time being, that he needs to know where everything is at, essentially. And even later in the episode, we see him head home to go and get some underwear, out of all things. So it makes me believe that he was taking a tour around the Six Cross ship and was planning to move in there. So that's essentially what was going on at the beginning of the episode. Two very interesting things happened during this scene. The first one being Luke freaking out by seeing the Gears wallpaper, which is not something new that we haven't seen in the show so far. I remember back when Rook dueled against Kaizo, he mentioned during that duel that he hated Gears in that episode, and this episode just exemplify that a little bit more, as we see him scratching on the wall because Yugioh had like gear wallpapers on his wall, and he ended up just start scratching, like absolutely losing his mind, until Yugioh says, all right, stop, I will go and take those posters down right now, and was able to calm Luke down. But the other interesting thing that came from this whole entire conflict was Doll going up to Yugioh and mentioning to him, you know, it seems like Rook doesn't have fusion with him. And that line right there was very interesting. Now, a lot of speculation has kind of gone around of how Rook has obtained fusion. I've heard that Yugioh might have given him the fusion card, and he's been planning this since the beginning, even though I personally never believed that Yugioh specifically was the one to give fusion. I don't even think he had any involvement with Luke obtaining fusion. He just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that really wants to share fusion around. You know, he believed at that moment that he was the only owner of fusion, and that it essentially made him unstoppable. So for him to give his fusion up to someone else, or give him another copy of fusion to someone else, just does not make sense to me. But another theory that's kind of come up is Doll. But there were two very interesting things in the episode that I think kind of deconfirm this as well, or at least in my opinion it does, with this scene in particular, but this one doesn't really show it that much. It's a scene that we're going to be talking about later on in the episode that I think kind of debunks that theory as well, and a lot of people are still on the whole theory that Doll has some involvement, and maybe he knows something about it that maybe Yugioh doesn't know about, but for him specifically given the fusion, I just don't believe it, but I'll explain why when we get a little later on into the review. But after that whole conflict, we see the rest of the Goha siblings, the former presidents, actually confronting Yuga, Roman, and Gakuto, and essentially they're going to go ask Yuga to essentially help them with their goals of trying to stop Yugioh, which I kind of find hilarious, especially since Yugioh was the one that started asking Yuga and the crew to help them when if you guys remember, back in, I think it was 2 episodes ago, he was literally fighting against Euron about doing that, saying like, you know, this is our deal, Yugioh is our problem, we should deal with it ourselves. But I guess he decided to cave in and he decided to actually ask Yuga and the crew and help. And speaking of Euron, why the hell was Euron here? If you guys remember, Euron got locked away in the Six Cross airship. How the hell did he escape? They did not explain it in this episode why he was just with the other former presidents. Maybe Papyrus saved them? I mean, I would have loved to see that scene or just mention how the hell he got out of there, but I guess it's not important to the viewers on how the hell he was able to get out of the Six Cross airship, so that essentially happened. I don't know why they didn't mention or show us anything of that. Maybe for time restraint. I don't know. But that was just a weird instance that ended up happening during this episode that I was really not a big fan of at all. They should have explained how in the world Euron was able to escape that Six Cross airship, which maybe they'll explain it in future episodes, but I don't know at this point. I feel like if they explain it anytime after this episode, I just don't think it would really make sense. I feel like they would just say it just to say it at that point. So that was very interesting there, and it seemed like Roman almost didn't want their help, which was really weird. I mean, these people are willing to help you essentially not only stop Yugioh and their plans and also losing rush duels, but also to save your friend. And I guess Roman doesn't want to do it, which I'll be fair for Roman. They literally tried to go up against them in the earlier parts of the arc, so I can understand why she's not really willing to work with them, but honestly, I feel like it was a smart move to do, and I think Yuga kind of thought it was a good move to do that as well, though kind of right now is not really in a good spot right now. He's still kind of thinking about the whole situation with Luke. We even see him in the episode just like he was just sitting there and he kind of looked a little bit stressed out, or it looked like he was thinking or something like that. So that was very interesting as well. And then we're going to get to Yuga and Yugioh a little bit later on because Yugioh and the group actually disappear for the rest of the episode until Yugioh appears at the end. But as they're talking, Tiger actually walks in because they did question about Luke actually being one of the Goha siblings, and Tiger decided to barge in and essentially tell them that that's not true. Luke is still one of the members of the family, and they actually take them to essentially their city. I mean, I am sorry, but Tiger and Luke, holy crap, these kids are rich, because we literally see them like go to their corporation, the KGC, which I love the name of that. It's kind of a play of a KC, which was Kaiba Corporations for Duel Monsters, and even GX for that matter. Well, I think 5D's had it as well. It's essentially when Kaiba Corporation was still a thing. I think it was in the first 3 trilogies because like when Zexal came, it was like Heartland City, and then you had the other future shows that were completely different. So that was pretty interesting. They kind of played on that a little bit with KGC, which is the Kamijo Gear Company. So which shows that gears are definitely a big part of Luke and Tiger's lives as they run a whole corporation about it. And again, these kids are rich. I mean, we literally see them walking towards the mansion-looking area, and they kept zooming out the camera, and holy crap, it looked like they were just living in their own city, essentially. So that was a very interesting scene there, and we get to meet Luke's father for the first time, or let me be more specific, it's actually his grandfather. It's not his actual father. That was my bad. We actually get to meet him for the first time, and my thoughts on him, he's definitely an older version of Luke. I mean, this dude is just a goofball in his own regards, telling the crew that he can call him Gavin, which I guess that just fits with the Kamijo names. I mean, you have Luke or Rook, whatever you want to call him, then you have Tiger, and then you have now Gavin, which, if I'm going to be fair, I don't really remember the actual names. If anyone remembers the actual names of Luke, Tiger, and this character's name, or the Gavin character, please let me know, because I have not really been paying attention to the names. I've just been paying attention to the nicknames. So that's very interesting. He gave himself his own nickname, and essentially he was a goofball about it. And we see then, after they have their conversation, Luke decides to come back home, even calling out for his mother. So we do know that Luke and Tiger still have a mother. He's asking it where his spare underwear is, and Doll kind of makes fun of him a little bit. It's like, you can't even find your own underwear, until Luke essentially tells him to shut up. And here is where Luke messed up, because as he's walking through the house, he hears Tiger calling out his name, and he just stops and he's terrified. He even grabs the drone and hides right behind it. And then, oh my god, like, Tiger just does not give a crap. She literally yells so hard that he flies right out of the building of the mansion, which is, oh my god. Tiger just gives no craps whatsoever. Like, when she's pissed, she is going to show that she's pissed. And this is where I want to kind of go back to what I was mentioning earlier of why I don't believe Doll is the one to give Luke fusion, because when he actually flew out of the building, we saw Doll still with him, and then we see a scene of another drone peeping out behind the mansion. So with that in mind, it makes me think that there is another drone that is giving Luke fusion. I mean, it makes the most sense, because if Doll was the one to give him fusion, then why is there another drone watching over Luke? I believe that Luke got fusion from this other drone, and I guess it also makes sense when you look back at the episode when Luke dueled against Yugioh, that drone was just flying in the background in the trees. And we already saw Doll with Yugioh in the ship. Now, I know you can make the argument, well, he could have just flown right back up there, but I don't know, from the gap of time between that, unless that drone was going very fast back up there, essentially like teleporting back up there, I just don't think it would have really made that much sense. So, in my opinion, I think Luke obtained fusion from this new drone. I really do believe that, but after that, Tiger, which then proceeds to rip Luke a new one after getting calmed down a little bit by Kakuto and Roman, decides to challenge Luke to a duel and to see if Luke has matured enough to be able to stand up on his own, in which Luke decides to accept her challenge. So that's where we get into the duel between Tiger versus Luke. And my general thoughts on it, I will say this was a duel I was actually pretty excited for, and another duel that I've wanted to see for a while now, ever since Tiger was introduced to the show. And just like the Roa versus Luke duel, I honestly thought this duel didn't live up to the hype either. I thought the duel was just okay. The back and forth in terms of the dueling matchup I thought was good for the most part. The story behind the duel I think was great. Luke trying to essentially explain to his grandfather and his sister that he doesn't want to be a part of the Yugioh Gear Company. He wants to be able to do his own thing, as earlier in the episode even Gavin explains that Luke is going to be the next in line to take over the company when he either retires or passes away. And that is where things get very interesting, and we kind of see why Luke actually hates Gears, because his entire life was focused on being prepared to go into this company and essentially become the next line for the KGC company. And Luke doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to just work on Gears his entire life. He wants to be able to go and do his own thing, like becoming the king of duels. That is something that he is more interested in doing than just working on Gears for his entire life. And I will just say this much. Based off of that alone, it definitely gives me a little bit more respect towards Luke, because he wants to be able to do his own thing. He doesn't want to have to be restricted towards having to do something that he doesn't want to do because it's the family business. So I really do respect Luke for that. But here is where I have my issue with the duel. There's two aspects to this duel that I really did not like. First off was Tiger throughout the duel, and essentially what she has done to Luke. So Tiger was very mad at the beginning of this episode, and I can understand why, because of Luke essentially betraying the group for essentially what they did, which, by the way, we had no interaction with Yugioh, Luke, Roman, and Luke. Like, I would have loved to see an interaction between them, and essentially the group asking why Luke is doing this, why did he decide to go with Yugioh's side, essentially the enemy, why did he decided to do that, but we got none of that, which I was very disappointed in that. But I think, looking more at the Tiger aspect of it, I did not like the fact because of what Tiger has essentially done to Luke, because oh my god, Luke was so scared out of his mind throughout this duel. And I understand that Tiger is that older sister, so in some degree, normally the older sibling will kind of bully a little bit of the younger sibling, and that's just in any type of family. I mean, I have older siblings that I've gotten bullied by before, but not to this extent. To the fact of where Luke is so freaking terrified of his sister that even when she activates a trap card to be able to survive during his onslaught when he was trying to go for game, he was just terrified by that, even though he's dealt with stuff like that before. But Tiger specifically made him so scared to where he went onto his hands and knees and started screaming and calling her a devil because of her ferociousness of Tiger as a person. And I will just say this, because of this duel, Tiger in my eyes has kind of gone down a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I still think Tiger is a very fascinating character, but this family situation needs to get fixed. I think Tiger needs to let loose a little less. I mean, the whole thing of her essentially bullying her brother to the point of where he's calling her a devil, and it goes into the second point to where he essentially, the only way he's able to win this duel is to go into the Luke man phase. To me, that's absolute bullcrap. There is no reason why Tiger should be this harsh to her brother. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no excuse for this whatsoever. Tiger should not be this rude to Luke, in my opinion. But getting into the whole Luke man phase, he ends up using the Luke man during this duel, which I don't like the fact that he was doing that either, because of the fact of what this duel was trying to do. Luke was trying to show that he is matured enough and that he's ready to be able to take his own step, and that he should be allowed to take the route that he wants to go. He can follow his own door to whatever he wants to go to, but essentially what ends up happening is that they decide to throw that to the side a little bit for the Luke man to come in to be able to defeat Tiger. He's able to fusion summon in this duel, summons Dragia Star F, and essentially uses the other effect that we didn't see in the duel against Yugioh, which allows it, I believe, to gain 900 attack and is able to attack twice, and also Luke uses a spell card to be able to gain enough attack points to be able to beat over his sister, and his sister almost in a way kind of got a little bit, I don't think scared is the right word. I guess maybe she kind of did scared. I was going to say more nervous more than anything, but that face that she made when she was getting ready to take the blow was very fascinating. But I would have loved if it was Luke specifically to do it, not him essentially getting brainwashed to be able to do that, because isn't that how that goes? Like, if he goes into the mass, he gets brainwashed, or at least that's what I believe it is, because of the fact of what we got in the last duel. But maybe it's another situation where it was like the awakened Roman state, where the first time she used it, you know, she didn't remember anything from the duel. She was angry to the point where she didn't even remember what ended up happening, while in the first time Luke actually used his, he didn't actually remember the duel between Yugioh. So maybe he'll remember this, and I think that might make it a little bit better. But the fact that he had to essentially hide behind a mask in order to defeat his sister, I don't know. I just really did not like that aspect. Other than that, I thought there were still good aspects to this duel, in my opinion. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the back and forth was not that bad. The whole premise of the duel, I think, was good, and I liked the idea of it, though I just think the execution, I just don't think really lived up to it, of what it could have potentially been. And we saw Dragia Star F in this episode as well, which I love the design of the monster, so I thought it was pretty cool to see that monster again, though I'm going to be honest, although I love seeing that monster, I think it would have actually been cooler if we did see Luke use a different fusion. We do know that he has another fusion in the form of Kick-Base Master, and I do believe, and someone can quote me if I'm wrong in this, didn't we get an announcement that there was going to be a new Rook fusion, another High Dragon fusion monster? If I'm wrong, please let me know, but maybe if I am wrong, maybe he could have summoned another High Dragon monster that wasn't Dragiastar F, because, again, it felt like the only reason why they were showing off this monster, again, was to show off its other effect, which is the gain 900 attack and attack twice. But I thought it would have been cool to see a new fusion monster, which, speaking of new monsters, we saw Tiger use a new ace monster, which was really cool to see. It was a musical tiger, which is something that she should have had since the very beginning. I understand why she had the other two ace monsters. It fit her whole theme of her being more towards music with her bassoon and everything, and also when she was taking that attack, you know, she buried that thing into the ground, and even after all of that, Luke was able to persevere and even was able to dig that thing out of the ground and was able to make that thing fly back thanks to Dragiastar F's attack. So that was actually pretty cool to see as well. But we saw Tiger use that new Tiger Ace monster, so that was really cool to see as well. But after that, everyone goes up to Tiger, and we see Luke go back into the 6-cross ship, acting like a superhero as well. I mean, that man had his fist in the air and looked like he was flying back into the airship, as Yugioh says the quote of, "Good job, my puppets." And that's when they kind of have a little brief conversation between the other characters. And also, I forgot to mention this about their grandfather. He does a similar thing to what Luke does, where he repeats a line multiple times, but instead of doing it twice, he does it 3 times. So you have Tiger, who just does it once, which makes sense for Tiger. You have Luke that does it twice, and his grandfather who does it 3 times. So I think that's pretty cool that the family kind of has this thing of where they would repeat stuff multiple times, which makes me wonder of what the mother would do. Would she do it 4 times, or would she do it more than 4 times? That's actually pretty curious to kind of think about that in hindsight, but that really doesn't matter. They kind of have their own brief conversation with Tiger after Tiger ended up passing out because of the duel. And then the final thing that happened during this episode was that we see Yugioh talking to Yugioh back at Yugioh's lab. We unfortunately don't see what Yugioh's actually talking to Yugioh about, but Yugioh is pretty surprised of what Yugioh was telling him before Yugioh ends off the episode by smiling. So what is this whole thing about? Like, what did he tell Yugioh? I honestly have no idea. Yeah, maybe it's to get fusions to stop Luke and Yugioh. I have no idea, but it's going to be very interesting later on to see what Yugioh was talking to Yugioh about, and essentially what Yugioh's plan is to stop Yugioh and Luke. But with that being said, that is going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on episode 64 down below. Did you guys like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like the episode at all? Let me know your guys' thoughts about learning about more about Luke and his family, your guys' thoughts on Luke's grandfather, and your guys' thoughts on the duel between Luke and Tiger. And did you enjoy the duel, or did you not really enjoy the duel at all? And did this duel live up to the hype that you're expecting for a Luke versus Tiger duel? Well, love to know all your guys' thoughts on this episode down below. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.